So I'm going to focus on really just one of the questions in front of us for now, and then I'm happy to talk in the Q&A about any and all questions. The question I'd like to focus on is what makes for a competitive application and what makes some applicants stand out from the crowd. I've been on the MIT admissions committee for the political science PhD program for almost all of the years that I've been at MIT. I've been there 8 years, and I think I've served 5 times. So I have a lot of opinions about what makes candidates stand out from the crowd, and I thought those might be the most helpful thing that I could share with you. But my advice is pretty general. So I realize this is, MENA region focused, but I hope it applies more broadly as well. I also think that I'm going to talk about political scientists because that's where I work. But if you're applying to another field, I think you can almost just replace your field with that, and what I'm going to say mostly holds. So my number one piece of advice is to develop a theory of who is reading your application, and then to act on that theory. So who is it? How are they reading it? What mindset are they in? What information are they trying to extract from it? What helps them advocate for you over the opposition on an admissions committee, someone who doesn't want to see you admitted because they want to see someone else admitted? How do you give them the things they need to see in an application to move forward with your file? That's the theory that you need to develop and solve so that your application can have the answers. So I'll tell you my theory, but I think you should work on developing your own as well. So my theory is that the person reading your file is likely to be tired. They're likely to be bored. They are sympathetic, but they're finding themselves sympathetic to way too many of the applications. So in our case at MIT, we know that we have to get from about 500 applications to about 25. So you can't be sympathetic. And honestly, it hurts. It makes me mad that I have to look at all these promising applications and then reject most of them. So I'm angry about that too, right? I'm looking at 30 to 50 hours of tedious reading, and that's if I just kind of skim most of them. If I read carefully, we're talking about even more time. So more than a full work week of time. So what this realistically means is that 10% of the files are going to get about 80% of the time. So your first problem is to get into that 10% of the files. From there, it's pretty much random and up to factors you can't control. But who gets into that 10% is not random, and there are things under your control you can do. So applicants I talk to are very focused on whether their grades and GRE scores are enough. They matter, but we actually don't have cutoffs at MIT, and I think many other programs don't have as strict cutoffs as you might think. We are experimenting with waiving the GRE. Also, these are out of your control, most likely. The things you can control are your statement and your writing sample. I think the statement's probably the most important, and so I'm going to talk about that, but the writing sample as well. So I think that you should make your application try to feel like a breath of fresh air to a tired reader. How do you do that? I want to feel joy when I pick up the application. So the first sentence of every document needs to draw me in and make me want to read the next sentence, which makes me want to read the next sentence, which makes me want to read the next paragraph. And all of a sudden, instead of skimming the file, trying to figure out if it's one of the 475 that we're likely to reject, I'm reading the file and I'm interested in what's going on. If you can make that turn, your chances of admission go way, way up. So how do you make that turn? First, short, clear prose. It has to be skimmable in order for me to ever get past skimming to reading it. I prefer statements that start with a research question nested in a broader area of interest. And I mean this very seriously. If the first sentence is a research question that piques my interest, I'm suddenly reading more carefully. Give me the background on your motivations, accomplishments, etc. at the end. That's my personal opinion. Or better yet, you weave them into the research discussion of what you want to do. And then you need to connect that research question, I think, to probably 3 faculty members in each department you're applying to, and list them out. Because a task that someone on the committee has to do is figure out, one, who would be on the dissertation committee of this student if we admitted them. If we can't answer that question, it's going to be very difficult for you to get in. You can make it easy for us to answer that question. 2, we need to figure out, we're not expert in everything, so we need to know who should read your file, right? The chances, there's a Middle East audience, the chances that a Middle East scholar is actually reading your file are very low, even at MIT where we have a few. And so some admissions committee member is going to read your file and say, oh, this should go to so-and-so to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, right? So you need to solve that problem right out of the gate. Don't go chronologically. This is a big mistake I see. I mean, you can do what you want, but people tend to have had their most impressive accomplishments more recently, and I would lead with those. Like there's no reason this has to go chronologically and start with, your early achievements. Like start with the most impressive things and then work backwards. Weave a narrative around the research and how you're going to conduct the research, not around your life story. And that relates to something else. I think showing is better than telling. And one of the pet peeves I have, if you couldn't tell from what I just said about, the chronological thing, I will now be very explicit. I don't love when you tell me that you love political science because you liked talking about politics around the dinner table. I see this in approximately 5% of applications as kind of the leading paragraph sentence. I have encouraged admitting 1 or 2 people who did this, but it really knocks an application down a peg. And there are a couple of reasons. One is that I infer that you don't really know what you're getting into, because my day job as a political scientist does not look like talking around the dinner table about politics. And like, this is a, graduate school in political science is a pie eating contest where the reward is more pie. Like you just do more of the same thing once you get out of grad school for the most part. And so if you don't know what you're getting into and you don't like it, then I just worry you're going to struggle in grad school. So then show me instead that you actually want to be a political scientist, or insert your field here, by demonstrating that you've already started trying to learn and practice the norms and practices of that field. And at the bottom line, that's idea creation. So if you can make me think new ideas in your personal statement, your odds just went way up, like way, way up. If I look at your writing sample and I'm like, wow, I think I'm learning something from this paper, again, your odds go way, way up, right? So that's showing me instead of telling me. Broadly speaking, this relates to, cliches don't help you, doing like artsy things in the application that really defy genres, writing it in poetry or something. It gets my attention, but it doesn't really help you. The number one thing that helps you is leaving me with a new insight from having read your application. And we don't hold you to that insight. It's not like it's a contract where you get to graduate school and we're like, you had an idea and now you have to work on that idea forever. We trust that people who make us have ideas when we read the applications are capable of making us have other new ideas once they're graduate students, and then when they are professors or professionals throughout the rest of their careers, right? So this is what it's going to take for someone to advocate for you to get in. And since I told you it's so competitive at our program, someone is going to have to advocate for you. They're going to have to say, this person is going to generate more insights about politics over their lifetime career than this other person. And that's why we should admit this person. Now that's a really high bar. And I don't say that to be intimidating, but I do think it's a high bar. But here's the thing. I truly believe that each of you has something to teach me and my colleagues about politics. I think everyone brings a unique perspective and unique set of experiences and background that help you illuminate some aspect of politics that I and my colleagues have missed, right? I truly believe that, and I think your task at hand is to figure out what that thing is, make a kernel of it into a personal statement, explain to us on the admissions committee why it's an important puzzle and why you could solve it in the course of a PhD with some training. And I think you'll have a successful application. I believe you can, and I wish everyone who's applying good luck.